radio over there, would you kindly? I don't think that old boy's gonna be needing it anymore, do you? Nice job, sport. Now we better hurry. We better get this YouTube video started.
Welcome back. I've been replaying the Bioshock games, and in playing back through these games, I forgot how much I love the style of them. They have the retro-futuristic, post-apocalyptic vibe of something like, say, Fallout, but it's wrapped in this nautical Art Deco sort of style. What can I say? I have a type. This is the radio that Subject Delta uses in Bioshock 2, and every time this has popped up at the bottom of the screen, I have coveted it. And so this is what I want to make today. Now I do have a little bit of a creative challenge I want to give myself on this, and that is that I want to use only found objects. If it's not in this workshop, I can't use it. No buying anything new, no 3D printing some special piece, none of that. And there's a reason for that, but we'll talk about that later. For now, why don't we let background me start gathering some of those materials, and me and you will start talking about the plan. I think my plan with this is to make it at least somewhat functional. I don't want this to just be a display piece, and kind of needs to do something. I think the easiest thing for me to do would be to put a smart speaker in it. I mean, I already have a she who will not be named over there on the wall, and this might be a good way of mounting it. Then this area right here. I kind of want to see if I can put a light in there. My idea being, I might be able to put the portraits that you see for, say, Andrew Ryan or Atlas. I just think that could be kind of cool. So I think step one for this is going to be to just get the rough shapes in. I need this box to be something big enough to hold a smart speaker, and then the size of that box will dictate the size of that box. Hopefully by this point he's done gathering all the materials. I feel like this old M&M container is actually pretty much perfect for the size I would want for her. So I think what we'll do is kind of cut off this bottom here, and that will be, these two are a little too close. This is going to end up being bigger than I expected. Way bigger than I expected. This is going to be freaking huge.
Floating giant of wood and steel is easily dwarfed.
This thing is huge. Huge. Like, look at it. Just look at it. This is so much bigger than I imagined. This is a device that ought to fit somewhere on Subject Delta's suit, right? I mean, this is how he's communicating. It's how he plays the recordings that he picks up. This has got to be somewhere on his person. Not this. This is too much. This is too much. I'm gonna think about this a little bit more, mull it over in my head, and see if maybe tomorrow we can't come back and make this a little smaller, more reasonably sized. Yeah.
L'histoire de trésors dans les amphores est sans doute une légende. Une jolie légende.
Okay, so we're back. And having given this a little bit of a think overnight, I have come up with a couple of options. Number one, I think this empty screw container would be about the right size for the sort of main body of the thing. And that's enough of that. I picked up a couple of these during Christmas because, of course, I'm gonna make them into little stargates. But looking at the base of it, I think is about the right size for an external speaker. Which brings us to our next point. So unfortunately, She Who Must Not Be Named is not going to work for this project. It's simply going to be way too big. So I went scrounging for an alternative, and I found this. It's still a She Who Must Not Be Named. I can't remember what they called this one, but I bought a couple of them a few years back, and it's literally just the sensor. I think this, plus an external speaker, should get us what I want. There's only one problem with that. Because I have to use only items I already have, I only have one external speaker, and it's already occupied.
These impulses of current are carried to the speaker, where they are converted back into sound that...
This is the Vault radio that I made for the Fallout short film back in December. And by the way, if you want to see how I made this, there is a video of that on my Patreon that you can go find. This speaker is a real speaker, though it's not actually connected to anything. I don't remember where I got this speaker. I don't remember if it works. I do think this is my best choice because as I was scrounging around, I came across two of these, which are 4 ohm 3 watt speakers, they're not good, but they're an option. First, I need to make sure that everything I've gathered will fit this speaker and the relative size of this project that I would like it to. So basically what I'm saying is we're starting over from scratch. Take 2. This is where we are. We've got kind of everything, we've got our rough shapes in place here. So we're gonna have this speaker here. I'm gonna put one of the 4 ohm speakers down here. We'll mount her right there. And then everything else will just be sort of filling in the blanks with some greeblies and paint and weathering and that sort of thing. The one part of this that I am, and I fully admit, actively putting off because I honestly don't know yet how I'm gonna do it, is the portraits. I would love to be able to interchange the portraits. I would love to be able to have them light up and kind of glow. I have some ideas, but we're gonna kick that can down the road. I think right now it might actually be a good idea to go ahead and take all these pieces back apart, clean them, and get them ready to paint. In other words, I think at this point, it's probably best if we just go ahead and do this, and then I'll figure out how to do the portraits once it's finished. There's no way that can backfire. None at all. That's a solid plan.
I felt as though I were being watched, but I didn't see anything except a harmless octopus.
So I've got all my pieces cleaned and lightly sanded. While I mask off part of this, we're gonna talk about the paint job. This is not just sort of, my usual post-apocalyptic kind of flair. I really wanted to have this texture. So it looks like something has, things have grown on the paint or the paint has bubbled up in places, that sort of thing. So to get that cheaply and easily and with what I have on hand, we're gonna hit it first with just a flat gray primer, just to give it a nice even base coat. And then we're gonna hit it with this fake stone, like granite texturing. All I want out of this is the texture. So I'm gonna do this really unevenly and build it up to a big pile of texture. And then once we're done with that, we're going to give it 2 different crappy coats. We're gonna do just sort of a nice brownish and a nice olive army kind of green. This is a very base coat kind of thing. Once we get everything together and we do a final weathering pass, I will probably have to come back and repaint some things. So this doesn't have to be perfect. I just want to get this mostly painted before I get too far down the line. And if I end up editing this together the way I kind of think I will, you'll have already seen me do all that while I was talking. So, did it turn out? How does it look? All right. So all of this has cured overnight. I also went ahead and put a clear coat on it, just so that anything else I do to this paint job won't compromise the sort of base coat that we've done. But I absolutely adore how this texture has come out here. Now we're going to move on and start fitting the speaker. And I think to do that, I'm going to widen this hole just a little bit and start with a mason jar ring. Nice and tight. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Ah. Yes. Woo. And now you can see why I wanted this. This knurled edge there, this sort of knurled band around there is the biggest reason. Now you can focus on me. Now you look at me. Is the biggest reason that I wanted to use this lid, because I just really like that texture on there. So once we get that sort of situated evenly, we'll put a grill over it. God, I love this stuff. Ugh. Okay, now I have to clean up a bunch more red plastic. Damn it. While I clean up this mess and try to get a little bit more organized for the next steps in this process, I thought it might be fun to talk about why I want to do this with just sort of found objects, rather than, 3D printing something or whatever. See, when I was a kid, I wanted nothing more in this world than to build the robots from Mystery Science Theater 3000. And I did, eventually. I was maybe 11, 12. I was a huge MST3K fan. I remember scouring old Angel Fire and GeoCities websites back in the day for people who build the bots. I loved MST3K and I wanted to be a part of it. I wanted to have a piece of it for myself. But I did not have the money, the space, the ability, any of it to be able to do a project as big as making these robots, though I desperately wanted to. And so I remember at some point kind of realizing that there was one bot that I could kind of build, and it's Cambot. So I remember taking these Pokeballs, the kids' toy like Burger King or McDonald's or something like that, but they were plastic about the size of a baseball.
The ball may pose a suffocation hazard to children under 3.
And I remember taking this like 50-cent craft paint and painting the whole thing gray, drilling a hole right beside the button on the Pokeball and poking a Christmas tree light and poked it through and hooked it to a 9-volt battery inside. And then I took the plastic wheel inside of a Scotch tape dispenser, put the bottom foil of a tea light on it, taped it with black electrical tape, and had my own little version of Cambot. And I was so thrilled, so impressed, and had so much fun with the fact that I could make this thing. I think I've been chasing that high ever since. I'm not kidding. I think I've legitimately been chasing that high for at least 20 years. I guess at the end of the day, I really just want to feel like a kid again. Beautiful. Nice and flat. We'll put some rivets around there. That will be pretty spectacular. Yeah, this is coming together. So much plastic. It's not even microplastics anymore, it's macroplastics. Okay, we need to talk about the part of this project that I have been avoiding. All that's really left to do is the sort of final assembly and putting the little greeblies and bits and bobs in here. But before I do that, I really want to figure out, just so I don't get in the way, how I'm going to do the portraits on the front and how I'm going to light those portraits up. I'm not sure how to do either of those things. My initial idea was to take something like just the glass out of a, 4x6 picture frame. Sort of this like old school kind of daguerreau type, tin type kind of feel to the photos. So the photos themselves, the portraits themselves, would be on glass. That way the light coming from behind them could make them glow, and I really think that could be a cool idea. I also would like it if whatever holds the photos in was this metal kind of border that you see Because right now, it's just this plastic bin lid kind of thing. And that's not what I want. I'm gonna go have a walk around the workroom again and see if I can't figure out how I'm gonna make this work with the portraits. All right, let's go have a think. Once again, I am enamored with my own cleverness. I was looking around the workroom trying to figure out how we're going to do this little metal frame thing with the portraits, and it occurred to me. So a couple months ago, McDonald's put out these little tins, these little like collector's commemorative tins, and my girlfriend went and got so many of these. As a side note, she wanted Mayor McCheese, and we got like 5 grimaces. So I grabbed one, sanded it down, cut it into a nice frame, widened the hole in the top of our box lid, and now we have an absolutely perfect metal frame. And when I say perfect, I mean perfect, because I also have just enough, this is all I have left legitimately, I have just enough of this flexible LED that will fit perfectly inside of this frame to light up the portraits. Oh, this could not have worked out any better. Now, to get the portrait onto the glass that I want to have, mount into the front of the radio, I took our portrait, which is blurry, but passable, the hoops I had to jump through. What we're gonna use here is this gel medium and get it on our glass here. Now we're gonna take our picture, really make sure that's nice and pressed down. And if you're wondering why I printed this on what was clearly a printer test page, is because I forgot. I didn't realize that was in there. It was a creative decision. It was a creative choice. I totally meant to do that, 100%. You can't prove I didn't. What are you, a lawyer? And now, because I'm impatient, is that dry? I don't know. We're gonna hope so. What I'm gonna do is take some water and wet this paper. And what we should be able to do is start rubbing the paper off. Oh, don't! I got a little too Lenny of Mice and Men. I pet the rabbit too hard, George. But, you can kind of see the proof of concept here. Once we get that paper off of there, he's far more see-through. More so than one might want. Oh no, Mr. Ryan, oh no. I played with this technique for quite a while and just really could not figure out how to get it to work. So I decided to move on and try printing out the portraits onto an inkjet transparency, which worked surprisingly well. I used some double-sided adhesive paper to stick the transparency to the glass itself, which also worked better than I expected. I thought that maybe the haze added by the adhesive would be enough to catch the light and allow you to see the portrait. It did not, and that didn't work at all. So I decided to give the portrait a backing of white tissue paper. To stick that on, I used some Super 77 spray adhesive. And because I used Super 77 indoors, I had to spend the next 5 minutes cleaning up the overspray. One day I'll learn. Once the white tissue paper backing was on, it diffused the light quite nicely, actually. So much so that I ended up making a bunch more portraits than I had planned to. So to get this to play, we were using the 2 speakers that I had before. These 2, I'm going to use both of them, that way I can get, stereo. To wire these into this, we need a step in between. Luckily, I have an extra one of these. This is one of the amps that I picked up for my previous radio build, which if you haven't seen that video, when this one's over, you should go watch that one. We're going to be able to run the smart speaker audio straight to this, wire these 2 into the left and right speaker out on this. We'll put this knob sticking out through the front of the little radio display, and we should be pretty good. So, got to get that all installed and finalized, and then we can finish putting this bad boy together. We're on the home stretch. It's going to be really cool. Hee hee. All right. So I was about to just put all this together, and, you know, we were in the middle of our final build montage when I looked at this picture and realized I forgot something. See that little tube up there? How did I miss that? So I started looking at this little tube thing, and my first thought was, oh, well, you know, that's no big deal. Except this doesn't make sense. Look at it. Look at it. This part right here, where the speaker is clearly in front of this main body. It's clearly pushed forward. But this seems to run straight out from the side of the main body here and then go into the top. So it's got to come forward. It's got to come out and then go forward. There is some kind of optical illusion going on here. I'm not sure how to solve that problem. So I've been tinkering with this for a little while now, trying to solve this problem using my favorite little Greeblies plumbing parts. You can never have too many little plumbing parts. And to solve this problem, I think I have decided to cheat. I'm not gonna buy anything, but I figure if they don't have to obey the laws of, you know, three-dimensional space, then I shouldn't have to worry about getting this exactly correct. So I've decided to cheat. Just a little bit. So what I'm going to do is to use this flexible, it's this like corrugated stuff you put over cords to, well, in my case, to keep cats from chewing on them. I'm gonna run the speaker cords through here, but I'm also gonna put some armature wire in here so that I can kind of curl it around and keep it where I wanna keep it. This was like a 3-hour detour. I'm not even kidding. I was like preparing to wrap this whole video up, and we're gonna do a little montage of like, here's the final build. Look at me put the finishing touches. Are we having fun yet? You'll let me know when it starts, right? Anyway, back to the montage. To attach the metal frame to the box lid, my plan was to use super glue, set to a low enough temperature that I could use it to mimic welds. This is a technique that's worked pretty well for me in the past, but it didn't work this time. So I decided to move on to an old model maker's trick of using super glue and baking soda. Moving in slow concentric circles with the super glue, and then giving it a coating of baking soda, you actually can get something that can pretty decently mimic welds. I mean, they look better than my actual welds do in real life. I used the same technique to attach the housing for the speaker, and then moved on to putting some fake rivets around the frame using these little paper binders. Just cutting off the tab ends, and then using the super glue to stick it to the frame. Everything was going surprisingly smoothly, which I should have known was a sign of impending disaster, because everything fell apart right about now. I knocked it off the table. I had baking soda on my hands and I turned around to pat them off, and I knocked the whole thing off the table. Okay, all right. Let's see what the damage is and reevaluate everything about my life choices. While he keeps going in the background, I need to tell you about the sponsor of today's video, no one. Nobody's sponsoring this video. On that note, because I'm a one-man band, making the thing, doing the filming, doing the editing, the whole shebang, these videos take weeks or months for me to get done, and I'd love the opportunity to do more of them so you have more stuff to watch. I try to keep the ad breaks on these videos as minimal and unintrusive as possible, and I would love not to have to rely on sponsorships that interrupt the videos. But the only way to do that is through the kind and generous support of viewers like you. Also, if you know any good video editors, please send them my way. Please. The editing there's so much editing. Guys, this is so much. I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm Perry and I'm fine. So if you would like to help support these videos and potentially help me make them a little bit faster and, make more of them, the best way to do that is through Patreon and or the YouTube memberships. And if you sign up for either one of those, not only do you get early access to new videos, but you also get a lot of behind the scenes stuff too. As of this video being live right now, there is a behind the scenes video of how I made the intro to this as Subject Delta. You should go watch that when you're done with this one. Thank you for your support, and again, if you know any good video editors, hit me up. And we should probably get back and see what the damage was on that, because that didn't look good. The worst part about this is that it confirms one of my biases when it comes to making stuff, which is I really don't like glue. Which, look, to be fair, this might have held up for years the way I had it built, had I not thrown it on the floor, had it not come to a sudden gravitational stop. I think this might be more than a 3-hour detour.
The next day, the manta ray with the advance party of ocean floor pioneers was on its way to Amphibia City.
Okay, after much trial and tribulation, we're done. This is now fixed. And I have to say, I'm not glad that this happened. I'm not gonna say that, because I'm not. I'm not happy this happened. I'm not happy that it's fine. However, this second iteration is definitely better. This bad boy is now rock solid. I have put 2 bolts right here running through the upper lid with a little bit of wood in there to help bolster the thin plastic and give it something to grab onto. I also added part of the plastic back onto this, going underneath the lip to this so it actually holds and stops that cantilever that I was having trouble with. Then I went back and put more super glue and baking soda to mimic welds, and now I am pretty sure that I could throw this thing on the floor and it would be fine. I'm not gonna do that, but I'm pretty sure I could. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. So with those repairs out of the way, now I could finally get to the final assembly. Once that was finished, I pulled all the wires through to the back side and was able to run power. It's not my most elegant wiring job, but it's also not my worst, trust me. To hide the hole in the side where the extension cord goes into the housing, I just found some of these little greeblies. These are just some plastic spacers that came with a shelving unit. I like to keep stuff like this for just such occasions. A little super glue, a little paint job, and that's actually not bad. Now it's time for everyone's favorite part, the weathering. I started off with a black wash of just watered down black acrylic paint, and you can see how that's already bringing out those details. This is going to serve as a little bit of a base coat we can start building off of. My thought process around weathering a prop like this comes in 3 stages basically, and really it's 3 colors. A mid-tone, a darker color, and a highlight. The process for doing this, at least my process, my way of doing this, is to start with the mid-tone. Then we move on to the darker color in a wash, just very, very heavily watered down. If you really want the wash to be grungy and grody, use less water. If you want it to be more of a wash that can get into all the grooves and stuff like that, use less water and use more layers. Lastly, we'll do the highlight. This is to add just a little bit of visual interest, a little bit of a different variety to the color in select places. Now this 3-step process also applies to doing things like a rust effect. Spilling the paint on your shirt is optional. I don't recommend it, but you could try it. You can see here, I start with the mid-tone, which in this case I believe is a burnt sienna, and then mixing it with baking soda until you get this very loose sand consistency. Once this dries, it builds up to this nice grungy, crunchy rust texture, to the point where every so often I would even go back and use some sandpaper over those screws to bring back just a little bit of the bare metal. And just like everything else when it comes to weathering, I do the rust in 3 passes. The mid-tone, a darker wash over the rust, and then a nice highlight color just to really give that rust some depth and visual interest. I also went back and added a little bit of damage to the speaker grill with a sculpting tool. Once we've kind of done all that, we usually get to this point where it feels like it's too much, too messy, it's too chaotic, it's too dark and grungy and grody. As far as I am concerned, this is what you're aiming for. That is not too much weathering, it's the right amount. People don't like this look because I find they tend to stop right there. But I think there's another step. Once you've reached this point where it's almost too much, now you come back with the mid-tone and you do a dry brushing, just the lightest bit you can get on your brush of the mid-tone. And you go back over everything, the high spots, the corners, the raised edges, any texture. This helps to tone down the weathering while bringing back out the actual contrast of the thing itself. Also, I like going over it with a little bit of rub and buff. Again, just dry brushing it on the edges, over any texture, just so it looks like some of the paint has worn off. Now all of a sudden the edges come back out, the highlights come back out, the light starts to catch the thing again. All of a sudden that too much becomes just right. So that is my way of approaching it. This is my little technique that I have found works best for me. If you have another technique or something you find works even better for you, please leave it in the comments. I am always looking for new techniques. Now I was going to stop here, but looking at it, it just didn't have quite the aquatic feel that I wanted it to have. One of my favorite little environmental design features in Bioshock 2 are the glowing barnacle-looking things that you can find all around the walls of Rapture. So I decided to make a few of those of my own, just using some polymer Sculpey here. I sculpted them, baked them, and then gave them a nice fluorescent paint job. A little bright green on the inside, a darker green wash, and then my favorite bit, 2 different passes with some color change paints. A nice shimmery purple, and an otherworldly blue around the top. Raided my girlfriend's collection for some brightly colored shells to add, and then just a little bit of sea vegetation for good measure. And with that, we can call this project done.
Remember, every like and subscribe on Perry's video becomes one more link in Rapture's great chain. Only parasites watch YouTube videos without liking and subscribing. You're not a parasite, are you?